The coordinates you gave are 300 meters directly east of us, right at a very strong ocean current. That should be the spot you're looking for. No signs of civilization. That means they haven't developed advanced intelligent life. There's nothing to worry about. 300 meters, we'll just fly over and check it out. Hearing that, Shufu picked up Monday and flew straight there. A moment later he saw it, a vast body of water. Shufu grinned, assembled his fishing gear, and went through the little rituals. This was his first trip so far into the universe after all. Rituals mattered. Whoosh! The line dropped. Check-in successful. Obtained cosmic level fish bait. Cosmic level fish bait, bait imbued with extraordinary power, increases the chance of catching cosmic level items. Cosmic level bait? Shufu's eyes lit up. That's good. Does this mean I might snag cosmic level treasures? Even an infinity stone would be a huge score. He was about to cast again when Monday, scouting the sky, shouted a warning. Master, be careful. High energy life form entering the barrier. High energy? Shufu frowned. I thought this planet only had primitive beasts. Could it be another tourist like me? He'd only asked Monday to watch for stupid animals or curious birds that might disturb his first interstellar fishing trip. But high-energy life form wasn't the sort of thing primitive fauna could be. Monday had never issued that kind of alert for even the Guardians of the Galaxy. Then she shouted again. No, he's breached my barrier. He's here. Before Shufu could react, a silver figure on a flying board streaked through the air and hovered above them. The body of water here was enormous, more like an ocean, covering half the planet. Monday's barrier was huge, spanning tens of millions of meters, and yet this intruder had flashed through it in seconds. His speed alone told Shufu this was no ordinary being. He was on a different level from the Guardians they'd encountered before. Brother, sorry, I claim this as unowned territory. First come, first served. I've already marked my zone. If you want to fish, go on the other side of the bank. We won't interfere with each other. The silver figure spoke calmly. Shufu glanced up at the hoverer without lowering his fishing rod. He continued fishing, ignoring the offer. Hey, did you hear that? My master said, go to the other side and don't disturb us. Monday barked, equal parts angry and frightened. She was furious because the stranger had shattered her barrier. She was afraid because the intruder was clearly powerful. But with Shufu backing her up, she wasn't going to back down. People of Blue Star, please leave quickly. I am the Silver Surfer, Norin Rad. This planet has been selected as food for my lord. Norin Rad. That name rang a bell in Shufu's memory. He'd heard of the Silver Surfer back in his old world, an astronomer from Zenla who'd become Galactus's herald to spare his home by finding other worlds for Galactus to devour. Shufu's curiosity was piqued. Oh, you're Norin Rad? He asked, finally looking up properly. How did you know I'm from Blue Star at a glance? There were countless humanoid races across the multiverse that looked human enough to be mistaken for people from Blue Star. Without some telltale power or attire, an alien could easily pass for a cosplayer on the street. Yet the surfer had identified him instantly. Norin's face was expressionless. My lord granted me the ability to perceive everything, past, present, future. I cannot see your future, but I can see your past. I know your origin, person of Blue Star. Leave now, or I will issue an eviction order. Is that so? Shufu smiled. Interesting ability. He wasn't surprised that the surfer couldn't see his future. His platinum Superman form was hardly something anyone should be able to read through easily. But the claim to perceive past and present still made him uneasy. If Galactus's herald could peer into his past, even if limited to events since he arrived in this universe, it was a reminder. Universe-level forces like Galactus were not to be underestimated. Tell your master this planet is mine, Shufu said, not intending to give in. He had come to fish, and as soon as he triggered a refresh by catching something, he'd leave. Galactus wasn't likely to follow him back to Blue Star over a fishing dispute. Norin's voice was flat. The Centaurus arm contains only Chai-Su star that meets my lord's standards and lacks intelligent life. If Galactus wakes hungry and cannot find suitable food, he may devour the nearest civilized world at random. Tens of trillions could perish when that happens. There was a strange, vacant quality to the surfer's warning. Ever since he had been granted power by Galactus, he'd lost much of his old emotions and memories. Yet he still, for reasons of his own, tended to mark uninhabited worlds as suitable for his master rather than populated ones. Bastard! Didn't you hear what my master said? Get out of here! Monday snapped. Her programming was simple and complete, loyalty to her master, Shufu, above all else. Shufu stood his ground, fishing rod in hand, watching the silver figure hovering over the ocean. The tension hung in the air, a lone fisherman and his loyal guardian versus the cosmic herald of a world-devouring entity. For now, neither side moved. Chapter 182, Section 182. She was getting increasingly annoyed by the Silver Surfer's repeated interruptions. Before she could think further, Monday, her AI guardian, reacted. It mobilized a red wave of energy and charged at the Silver Surfer, who was idly hovering on his signature silver board. Blue Star people, you're interfering with my mission. I will expel you. The Silver Surfer finally snapped. He stepped onto his board and rode over Monday's red energy like a surfer riding a swell, seeming to treat the attack as nothing more than a ripple. For a moment, it looked as if the wave would break over him, but the surfer simply rode it down. Gradually, his board's influence extinguished the red energy, and he descended to hover directly above Shufu's head, where Shufu continued fishing without moving. The opposing energies clashed and canceled each other out. The backlash nearly blew Monday several meters backwards, but Shufu, still steady with one hand on the rod, swept up an energy shield with the other to protect Monday. Monday steadied and landed. At the same instant, the Silver Surfer counterattacked. From beneath his board, a silver energy projectile launched, only to meet Shufu's thermal I-beam. Sparks and light erupted where the two forces met. Yaz red and silver waves collided, biting and locking against each other in midair. The exchange was violent, but Shufu clearly had the upper hand. Norin Rad, clenching his teeth, arched his body, straining to cling to his board, but he was losing his grip. The surfer drifted farther from the board, pulled back by the pressure of Shufu's power, until the distance between him and his board grew from mere meters to nearly 100. Heh, still want to fight me? I'm a superhuman who's drunk super god water from Dragon Ball, Shufu thought, and doubled down. The thermal beams in his eyes condensed from two thin rays into one massive column, thick as a tree trunk. He blasted it straight at the surfer. Norin had not expected such a sudden escalation. He couldn't hold on. He was slammed free of his board and blasted through the air, the board slipping away. He fell headlong and hit the sea of air beside Shufu. Shufu glanced at his fishing rod, which had barely moved, and sighed. Really, there's never any peace when I fish, he muttered. Monday escorted the now disconnected Silver Surfer over to Shufu and set him down. Without his silver board, Norin had lost the near-limitless cosmic power Galactus had granted him. Stripped of that source, he was only marginally stronger than a well-above-average Blue Star native. Physically exceptional, yes, but no match for Monday's upgraded combat templates. Facing Shufu, sitting calmly, guarding his fishing spot, the surfer realized he was as vulnerable as a fish on a chopping block and had no choice but to yield. All right, Norin admitted. You Blue Star people are indeed strong. I can tell you didn't kill me because you want information. Ask what you want. But I advise you, leave this place quickly. Don't meet that lord. Shufu took the concession seriously. He looked down at the defeated surfer and asked in a measured voice, First, where is your master, Galactus? Is he with you? Hearing the name, Norin froze. He had always referred to the being who empowered him simply as my master, never by name. Galactus was one of the universe's founding entities, mysterious, secretive. Even Norin had not expected this unremarkable Blue Star human to know the name. He stared at Shufu in surprise. You actually know who my master is? He asked. Shufu ignored the astonishment, as if it meant nothing, thinking to himself, I know things you don't know. What's so surprising? Then he met Norin's eyes and said, Don't ask how I know. Just tell me, where is Galactus right now? Did he come with you? Norin read the seriousness in Shufu's face and understood there was no time to stall. Without his board and stripped of most of his power, he could not resist. He answered plainly, No, you're wrong. My master did not come here with me. He paused. He simply ordered me to scout the little planets in this remote Milky Way, to see how developed they are, to see whether they're edible for him. Shufu listened and reflected for a moment. So Galactus had indeed only sent Norrin as a scout to probe the Milky Way's worlds. He himself was not here. But given how the story usually unfolded, Shufu knew this likely meant Galactus would come directly to Blue Star next, sooner rather than later. Fortunately, Shufu had already encountered the Silver Surfer, Nora Lind, here. That meant he had a little buffer time to prepare. Shufu didn't know a great deal about Galactus beyond various stories. Galactus was said to be one of the universe's 5 founding gods. Unlike the other 4, who were abstract life forms born within this universe, Galactus was a peculiar case. He was the sole survivor from the previous universe and had somehow crossed into the seed of this current universe. In a sense, he could be considered the first true life form of this universe, and he had been granted godhood by the supreme creator, the one above all. Because he still carried the remnants of the previous universe, Galactus was perpetually unsatisfied here and needed to devour planets to replenish his energy. That was why he often appeared in stories weakened or partial, and why he was frequently defeated by opponents who caught him when he wasn't at full strength. Shufu's knowledge of Galactus's combat record didn't make him tremble, yet he understood that Galactus, as a supreme being, was far beyond Shufu's current level. Behind him loomed the even greater danger of Blue Star. Even if Shufu himself didn't care about that, his companions would be no match for Galactus. So Shufu had to use the time before Galactus arrived to either grow stronger or find a countermeasure. He didn't want to attract the attention of the universe's creator gods until he was ready. He had secrets inside him, the system, and he didn't know whether those gods had ways to probe it. Prematurely revealing himself to such beings would be suicidal. Still, he knew he wasn't hopelessly far from their level. He already had 4 Infinity Stones. 2 more would let him at least tap into supreme universal energy. He had no intention of fashioning an infinity gauntlet and ruling the universe like that big purple potato from the movies. But with 6 stones, he and his allies would be able to fight among the universe's upper ranks and stand up to those supposed creator gods. Shufu looked at Nora Lind again. "So your master, Galactus, only comes after he receives a reply from you?" he asked. Nora's expression betrayed a trace of fear about Galactus's arrival. He assumed Shufu was similarly worried, but Shufu's concern was different. He feared being exposed too early to the universe's supreme gods. Nora didn't know that. "Most of the time it's like that," Nora said. "But if I encounter an enemy I can't handle, if I don't send any word for a month, my master will come in person." "A month," Shufu murmured. "Then this time he won't come yet." He gave the order as soon as he learned the timing. "Monday, open a space gate. Capture him and take him back. Put him in the ship's prison and keep watch." The Guardian's ship had a subterranean prison once used by pirate crews like Yondu's to hold captured prey. Shufu decided to incarcerate the Silver Surfer, not kill him. The reason he spared Nora was twofold. He sensed the Surfer still had a shred of loyalty to his home planet, and Shufu wanted more information about Galactus from his herald. The prison would have Monday's constant 360-degree surveillance, plus extra precautions, Shufu added. Nora didn't have his surfboard, the link to the universe's infinite energy, so even if Shufu returned it, the Surfer wouldn't be able to cause trouble inside a restrained ship. "Okay, Master," Monday replied. A pale portal opened in the void. Before Nora could react, a flash of light seized him and dragged him through. He vanished in an instant into the ship's holding cell. Monday's voice echoed across the empty planet. "Master, what now? Keep fishing or head back?" Shufu was about to answer when his fishing rod gave a sudden alert. He reeled in the line. A 10-meter-wide behemoth octopus came up, then condensed into a ball of light and flowed straight into Shufu's body. Universe Energy Connection Machine. Universe Energy Connection Machine, a simplified Galactus model high-precision energy siphon, efficiently converts planetary and stellar energy for the host to absorb, while minimizing energy waste during the drain. Shufu grinned. "Oh, I just finished fighting the Silver Surfer and reeled in a knockoff Galactus toy. Perfect." Chapter 184, Section 184. Shufu read the system's prompt and murmured to himself. The ability to convert the energy of whole celestial bodies meant that after using this device, he could directly absorb the energy of a planet like Galactus's meal, or siphon stellar light as easily as sunlight. Its conversion mechanism guaranteed that when he absorbed energy, he could stably and efficiently filter out impurities and transform the raw power into forms his body could use. In short, he would no longer have to worry about running out of energy in future battles. Most opponents he met now could be defeated in a single move. Very few foes could withstand more than a dozen exchanges with him. But that didn't mean there were no threats in this Marvel universe capable of giving him real trouble. Galactus aside, there were the supreme cosmic entities hiding in the depths of space, primordial gods, various universe-level deities, beings whose energy rivaled Galactus's. The reason they were gods was simple. They could draw energy from the cosmos itself and convert it for their own use. Fighting them was inherently disadvantageous. They didn't need flashy moves. They could slowly exhaust any challenger, because as long as they stood in the universe, there was an endless supply of energy. That made them nearly invincible. Now Shufu had obtained a universe energy connection machine. From one perspective, his power had leapt qualitatively. From another, if he could quickly master this device, he would possess the basic conditions to contend with those so-called supreme gods. He let that thought settle, then closed his eyes and began thinking. Slowly he said, "Monday, use your data to find a relatively remote but energy-rich star belt not far from Chaisu Star. Teleport me there." Monday didn't know the full purpose of his request, but perfectly loyal, she acted on his order immediately. Like the Silver Surfer, a flash of light struck Shufu and instantly transported him from the desolate Chaisu Star to a lush, green, unfamiliar world. After a brief space jump, Shufu, accustomed to the dizzying sensation, opened his eyes and looked around. At first glance, the planet resembled Blue Star, rolling green hills, clear water, a pleasant climate, but most of the mountains here were a brownish red, almost like rust. Their aura struck him like the coiled energy of dragons about to burst free. Having traveled between stars enough, Shufu knew this sign. The planet contained abundant mineral energy. No obvious life forms had been discovered yet, but the mineral reserves alone made it an excellent place for energy experimentation. "No wonder Monday brought me here," he murmured, pleased. This world not only had plentiful energy, but also a solar flux of about 0.8, meaning it sat at a favorable distance from its star. It was the ideal site for his next test. All right, time to test that universe energy connection machine. He submerged his consciousness into his mind and began the activation ritual. Start testing. Let's see what this universe energy connection machine can actually do. Hopefully it brings surprises. As soon as he finished the thought, rays of light shot out from his back. Like the densely packed tentacles of an octopus, light-formed tendrils unfurled from him and fluttered outward. Clusters of faint luminescence, like dandelion fluff scattered in spring, were seized by those tendrils, pulled into his body, and vanished. Simultaneously, the brownish-red mountains around him visibly receded. Their outer layers collapsed into soft, dusty gravel. Is this universe energy absorption? Shufu opened his eyes and watched the landscape change. He quickly understood what was happening. It looks like the current stage of energy conversion is limited to absorbing nearby mineral energy bodies, he said. There's not much reaction to higher-level biological energy. Obviously, the mountains, rich in minerals, were being directly siphoned by the connection machine. The green grass under his feet remained unaffected. That showed his current mastery of the universe-level tool was still shallow. With deeper understanding, he could draw in not only mineral energy, but also stellar light and the life energy of organisms. Still, he had only just obtained the device, and the results pleased him. He smiled up at the sky. At least with this universe energy connection machine, I won't be so worried about doing things in the future. Ding! Host strength breaks through. Power gains 10 times previous critical strike. Shufu frowned at the notification, opened the system panel, and examined the changes in his body. Hoch T. Strength, 4th Order. Spirit, 3-5. Energy, 3208. Fishpond Milky Way Galaxy, Chai Star. Chapter 185, Section 185 Items, Darkhold, Time Gem Fragment, Vix Fishing Rod, Extraordinary Fishing Rod, X-Gene Suppressant, Sealed Green Lantern Ring, 5 layers, Nitrogen Star Spaceship, Superman Bio Combat Suit, Supreme Magic Book, universe-level fish bait. Skills: Superman's body, early silver, 9 realms pupils, clown mind network, dimension ascension stage 5, portal galaxy, freezing breath, flight, X-ray vision, thermal ray, Nabu's power, stage 4, universe energy connection machine, beginner. Nabu's power grants: super strength, super speed, telepathy, object levitation, danger premonition, disease immunity to be unlocked. Just one universe energy connection machine had been enough to break past the bronze ceiling that Superman's body had been stuck at. It pushed him into the early silver tier. It was only the beginning of silver, but the difference showed. Overall strength and attributes had all jumped. A breakthrough on his first universe voyage, Shufu grinned. Maybe he should go exploring more often. Ding, check-in successful. Mental power plus 166. After cataloging his new abilities, Shufu returned to Chaisu Star to keep fishing. Unlike the short stay at Kamar-Taj, the system refreshed the coordinates of the fishing pond here, which gave him a hunch. The events on Chaisu Star weren't finished yet. The most likely troublemaker was obvious, the one tied to the Silver Surfer, his old master, Galactus. So Shufu spent another 10-odd days fishing. Apart from the octopus and the universe energy connection machine he'd snagged before, most catches turned up empty, but the new pond still paid out sizable attribute points with each check-in, 3 digits or more. Swish, chumming, casting. Shufu sat on a small stool, skillfully baiting the hook and watching his Vix fishing rod. Monday, dutiful as ever, massaged his shoulders beside him. Compared to Stark's old mechanical butler Jarvis, who'd reincarnated as Vision, and the later Friday who could listen but not act, Monday was near perfect. More importantly, she wasn't just for one-on-one tasks. While Shufu went through his 2-point line fishing routine, Monday had already used the template abilities given to her to create mechanical assistance. Right now, as Shufu fished and Monday massaged, several robots busied themselves catching prey and tending a small fire. Their parts had been scavenged from the Guardian's ship. After all, a certain raccoon aboard liked hoarding mechanical bits. And Monday had Stark's entire database plus the original Chitauri AI data to draw on. The technique for dispersing her consciousness into those machines came from Ultron. Given the sources, building and controlling the bots had been trivial. Beep, beep, beep. At that moment, Monday's left eye flashed red and let out a faint mechanical chime. Master, the silver egg is pressing the emergency button. Monday understood immediately. When Shufu had ordered Silver Surfer Nora Lind locked in the Guardian's ship Undercroft, an emergency contact button had been left for humanitarian reasons, so he could call or confess anything at any time. Let him out, Shufu said without looking up. Yes, Master. Monday touched her eye and a holographic screen projected in the air before Shufu. Silver Surfer Nora Lind, his surfboard gone, shouted frantically into the camera from inside the cell. Blue Star Man, my master, Galactus has awakened and he's coming. Shut up, don't scare my fish away, Shufu's voice cut across the projection. Mind-to-mind transmission was easy for him now. Professor X's telepathy came with his toolkit. Silver Surfer paused mid-plea, surprised. Then he straightened and answered directly into Shufu's head. Perhaps I expended too much energy before. My Lord Galactus woke early from hunger and came this way. My duty is to make sure he can feed on a suitable planet as soon as he wakes. Shufu understood. The excessive drain the Surfer mentioned had to be from their previous fight. The Surfer drew power from Galactus himself. In effect, Galactus was the Surfer's mobile power source. If the Surfer burned too much, Galactus would need to replenish it, and that meant Galactus would come hunting. Huh? Shufu muttered, then a strong tug pulled at his Vix rod, wrenching his attention back. As expected of a universe-level fishing pond, that's a heavy bite. He yanked. A gleaming eastern long sword flew up out of the water and landed in his hands. Mirrorflower Water Moon, a Zampakuto from the God of Death world, with a pale green hilt. It was an illusion-type blade. Anyone who saw its Shikai release once became hypnotized, thereafter falling under its thrall every time it was drawn. Even if they knew they were hypnotized, they could not break free. Oh, this sword showed up. Shufu turned it over, smiling grimly. With this, I might stand a few more chances against Galactus. Master? Monday asked, confusion in her voice. That big one, Galactus, has already arrived. The coordinate magic array I placed on the energy planet where I tested the universe energy connection machine was ripped up and destroyed in an instant. Very few beings can do that. Most likely, it's Silver Surfer's master, Galactus, one of the 5 great creator gods of the universe. Shufu waved his ring and opened a portal. He could traverse a small galaxy with it now. Before stepping through, he spoke to Monday. Guard this place. Don't let anyone or anything damage my fishing pond on Chai-Su Star. If I can't repel or divert Galactus, take the ship and return to Blue Star immediately. Let Stark and the Avengers handle it. Don't worry about me. If it gets out of hand, I'll run. He had a realistic sense of his strength against one of the 5 creator gods. He couldn't bet on winning, but he could run if needed. With that said, he didn't wait for her reply. Sword in hand, he stepped into the glowing portal and disappeared. Chapter 186, Section 186. Shufu floated in space, quietly waiting for Galactus. A temperature of -200 degrees Celsius had no effect on him now that he inhabited Superman's body. If anything, the cold let him feel the power of the stars in the universe more clearly. As time passed, he sensed a vast presence bearing down on him. Within moments, it had arrived. Galactus seemed to be asleep, his will buried deep, but the immense spiritual power around him sent visible ripples through space. Starlight, cosmic dust, orbiting debris, and the remains of dead planets were inexplicably drawn toward him, swallowed into his vast form. Even so, these things could not sate him. He still surged like a hungry demon toward Chai-Su Star. Shufu's figure flashed and a glow burst from him, intercepting Galactus's path. Beside the godlike mass of Galactus, larger than Chai-Su Star itself, Shufu looked like a speck of dust. Galactus ignored him and tried to pass. Brutal force threatened to blast Shufu away, but Shufu did not flinch. He unleashed his spiritual power. Zanpakuto, mirror flower, water moon. A cold, gleaming light blossomed in his palm as a magnificent blade sprang up above his head. It had been only half a meter, and then in 2 or 3 breaths it expanded until it filled the space. White light blazed, illuminating half of Chai-Su Star. Shufu did not hesitate. He struck at Galactus. Even in slumber, Galactus sensed danger. A roar that shook the void burst from him. The black, worm-like mass of his body swelled, revealing a scarlet energy core. A terrifying field of attraction flared out, drawing in the surrounding energy. Shufu felt the cosmos surge toward Galactus. He realized he had misread the phenomenon. This wasn't mere devouring of matter, it was control. Galactus was seizing the surrounding energy and integrating it into himself. It was not just energy, it was a law-level power. Worthy of being one of the 5 great creators, Shufu's presence registered in Galactus's ancient mind. But unfortunately, your current energy is not strong enough. Shufu, however, remained composed. He attacked again, the cold, shining Zanpakuto slashing down. The blade cut through the black mist that cloaked Galactus as if slicing clouds. Galactus howled. The scarlet core flared like a detonating warhead, a light so intense it briefly hid the star around which Chai-Su Star revolved. When the glare faded, Galactus's form reappeared, but it had diminished. His spiritual power sharpened, he had fully awakened. A tremor of force locked onto Shufu. "Since you have woken, then leave," Shufu said calmly. "You cannot devour Chai-Su Star. That is my fish pond. Whether I leave is my business. Even if you protect the balance of the universe, you have no right to be arrogant in my pond." A vast thought assaulted him. "Who are you?" Galactus demanded. "A student of Mutant Academy," Shufu replied flatly. "Galactus, I order you to leave this galaxy. Stay, and I will make you my enemy." "Leave? No reason. This Chai-Su Star is destined to be destroyed," Galactus answered coldly. "Human, I give you one last chance. Leave with a few of your people. That is my final mercy." Shufu snorted at the so-called mercy. "Since you refuse to listen to reason, then I will sharpen my blade for pigs and sheep. If you'd come at full strength, I might have felt fear, but you attack now at a weakness and still act presumptuous." He swung the Zanpakuto again. A streak of white light flashed across the sky so quickly it was almost invisible. Galactus's motion seemed to falter, frozen for a half-beat. Then Shufu's blade cut through him. A magnificent limb of Galactus was severed. The detached portion dissolved into starlight and drifted away into the dark. "Human, you walk a path of no return. You bring destruction upon yourself and your planet. Galactus roared, his reddish-brown hide glowing hotter with fury. This form Galactus displayed was not his true self, but a materialization for devouring planets, an energy creature fashioned to consume. He could not be killed unless that energy body was utterly destroyed and his soul core erased. Chapter 187, Section 187. The attack still inflicted terrifying damage. Shufu's strike had ripped at him as if his limbs were being torn away. Galactus's voice rolled out like thunder. "Human, this proves you do not value the chance I offered you. Then let you and the lifeblood of your race become my power," he continued, his vast will vibrating and spreading outward. "You will be dragged down from your altar. This world is not a time when you can run rampant." Shufu answered coldly. The illusory Zanpakuto in his hand flashed into a rainbow hue and sliced through the air. "Foolish human," Galactus sneered. "You dare use the same trick again, to try it a third time before me? Lowly one, you cannot comprehend the power of this being." Galactus's mind surged. He did not only devour worlds to live, his control over energy reached back to the origin of this universe. He could manipulate every form of energy through sheer thought, a power at the framework level of the cosmos. As his mental force spread, all surrounding energies began to submit, shuddering under his will. For a moment, Galactus entertained the idea of controlling the omnipotent universe itself. "You shall see the true, supreme power of this universe," he proclaimed. "Before your corpse, I will open your eyes to higher forces. Shatter for me." Mental power flowed into the cold, shimmering blade in Shufu's hand. Galactus expected to pry open the energy within, to turn the weapon inside out, to convert that power into a suppressive bomb under his control. But Shufu's figure flickered. The blade did not break or transform. Instead, it swung back, slashing at Galactus. "What is this? Is there a flaw in my origin? Why isn't it working?" Galactus barked, refusing to accept failure. He unleashed another savage burst of mental force. Shufu felt it strike at him. Within that cold, glittering Zanpakuto, the arrogant presence of a man named Aizen leapt. Aizen's mastery of power was embedded there. Shufu had seized and mastered that force, refusing to let it be torn free or scrambled by Galactus. Galactus pushed with everything he had, but he could not shake the power trapped inside. Then the realization hit him. It was not that his power had somehow failed. Shufu was simply beyond expectation. "How can this be?" Galactus swore. Even weakened, his mental power was immense, still greater than most beings, and comparable to those at Skyfather levels. Yet he was facing a human whose mental force rivaled, perhaps exceeded, his own. On the other side, Shufu felt a foreign mental tremor brushing at his own will. He barely suppressed it. Once pressed down, the vibration died away. He hardly bothered with it. This attack was too feeble to be a real threat. Then, almost playfully, "Galactus, you said I would see your supreme power. I don't see it yet. If you won't attack, then I shall." That was only to signal what he had already done. Hidden beneath his Nabu-infused power, the illusory Zanpakuto now carried a single razor-cold shadow threaded with sharp space power. Under Nabu's blessing, the strike had become lethal. It drove straight toward Galactus's power core. Galactus had not been careless, but he had been blind to this particular danger. At first, the Zanpakuto's movements had seemed innocuous, no devastating trauma, nothing catastrophic. So Shufu changed approach. He had another ace concealed, the Phoenix Crystal, masked by Nabu's power. It was the fragment Professor X and the Mutant Academy had traded him for his help. Shufu had hesitated to use it. He remembered Jean Grey's descent when she merged with the Phoenix Force. Even though Shufu had elevated himself far beyond Jean Grey, he had been cautious. The Phoenix Force was, after all, one of the universe's primal powers. Over time, however, Shufu had used the universe energy connection machine to siphon and refine that violent energy. What remained was a small, empty shell, yet even that remnant of the Phoenix Force could ravage a solar system. Now he revealed it as a killing blow. For a while, Galactus seemed oblivious to the danger. Only as Shufu's strike neared the core of his being did alarm register. The black mist enveloping him trembled. His composure cracked for the first time. He was startled, but already it was too late. Shufu bared his fangs without warning. The Phoenix Stone pierced space itself and struck straight into the core of Galactus's soul. There was a single, thunderous impact. a sensation as if an enormous force had been instantly and utterly drained away. The power was so overwhelming, it sent a flicker of panic through him. He severed the flow of his own power at once, but not before sneaking one last surge of godly force through. He detonated the Phoenix Stone at the heart of Galactus's essence. Starlight overflowed across the vast sky as if the galaxies themselves had hesitated in their spin. Shufu knew that, no matter how violent the strike looked, it could not kill Galactus, one of the 5 great cosmic entities. Even so, the blow had an effect. Galactus's colossal form convulsed. A thought word pulsed outward. "You actually stooped to such treachery? Wasting so much of the long-lost Phoenix Force." Then his body began to fold in on itself. His power, his flesh, even the surrounding fields of energy collapsed toward a single focal point, accompanied by a painful, keening wail. Watching from nearby, Shufu shook his head. Galactus, the planet eater, was a titan among titans, but also one of the less stable of the 5. Inside him churned a desolate, dying universe that endlessly consumed his life and will. That devouring emptiness was why he periodically weakened and why he fed on whole worlds. Shufu had struck that vulnerability. The internal power had begun to reverse. He felt no pity. "Heh, today I will be a god-slayer," he muttered, and attacked again. Green light gathered in his palm as he poured in the savage constructs of the Green Lantern. A monstrous emerald hammer sprang into being and flashed across the star sea. Blessed by Nabu's power, Shufu flowed through a cascade of brutally efficient motions. Unleashed together, his measured strikes could have leveled a planet in an instant. The green light and the hammer's ravenous will released a terrifying torrent of force that shattered the surrounding starfield. Rending pillars of red and green energy smashed into the planet eater, now reduced to roughly half his former bulk. The power seemed to vaporize everything it touched. Galactus trembled, and black mists peeled away from his form. Still, the green hammer had not even delivered half of its potential. Shufu frowned. The construct remained restrained by some unseen seal. He would have to find an opening to break the lantern's limits. Its ability to amplify imagination was extraordinary. The planet eater, meanwhile, did not die. Inside his shell roiled the power of an ancient dead universe, a force that could rival even a multiverse. Shufu drew no comfort from his earlier blows. Instead, he revealed golden energy and traced a trembling 6-pointed sigil in the air. This forbidden array, from the Supreme Grimoire, unfurled and cast its geometry across the 1,000-star field. At its center lay the planet eater. The array did not unleash that colossal power. It siphoned it. The 6-pointed star drew and fed on the force within Galactus's private cosmos. The giant's bulk continued to shrink more and more rapidly. Where he had once spanned worlds, he dwindled to less than a fifth of his original mass, then smaller still. Soon he had become a projection no larger than 10 meters, a mere colossal illusion compared with the being he had been. Yet his aura steadied. Shufu raised his guard and readied his trembling reserves of power. The projection's surface cracked like an eggshell. From within, something far larger and more menacing emerged. A humanoid figure the size of a small mountain stepped out. Its body was sheathed in metallic armor, seams glowing with terrible rays of light. Its voice was a thunderous rasp. "Human," it said, "you've forced me into my second form." "I devour planets to recover consumption," the planet eater said darkly. "Even if I eat your world, it will be hard to make up what I've lost." His expression was bleak and vicious. "You're in my territory, Chai-Su Star. Who told you to pick a pond where I fish?" Shufu retorted coolly. Galactus's eyes turned into cold coals. "You silver-tongued brat, it's a pity. You will die here. Your power will become my food." "We'll see if you're still hungry enough," Shufu sneered. He seized the opening and unleashed the 6-pointed star to full effect, activating the forbidden array that reached into the desolate universe, blistering inside the planet eater. The sigil flared, and the struggle for the ancient, devouring power intensified. Chapter 189, Section 189. A tremendous surge of seismic pressure rushed at Planet Eater. The being flinched in surprise. "You treacherous human, an ambush again? What do you expect in a fight? You use every advantage you can. Showing mercy to your enemy is only cruelty to yourself." Shufu didn't hesitate. A green light flared between his palms. The Green Lantern hammer transformed into a verdant torrent, a massive waterfall of power that roared toward Planet Eater without pause. To try to hit me with that kind of power, you're like an ant trying to shake a tree. My power is the primal power of creation, not something you mortals can comprehend. Planet Eater sneered. The power of a god was in another league. Ordinary power was like wood, primal power was like animal bone, a higher-level source field was like alloy, stronger by nature. To mortals, primal power was already formidable. Against him, it felt several tiers weaker. The two thunderbolts struck Planet Eater's armor but did nothing. He barely reacted as the universe's savage hexagram battered him. Shufu frowned. What a set of armor. I wonder what it's made of. If Planet Eater thought Shufu had no countermeasures, he was naive. A system chime sounded in Shufu's ears. Achievement unlocked. Challenge Planet Eater. Reward Gura Gura no Mi, awakened state. Shufu nodded silently. The Gura Gura no Mi isn't trivial, but the awakened state. Now that's something. Even in a Marvel universe full of gods, an awakened tremor fruit is almost comparable to mastering the Thunder God's origin. Devil fruit abilities scale with their user. If Shufu can already reach Skyfather level or beyond here, the awakened Gura Gura will be terrifying. He thought of Whitebeard, Edward, who with a mortal body in the small One Piece world, used the tremor fruit to upheave oceans. In a short time, Shufu might be able to shatter the hexagram he had just set, leaving Planet Eater unable to retaliate and dealing him serious damage. Shufu didn't waste time. He urged and combined Nabu's radiance with the Green Lantern's power. A fierce green glow erupted. Rumble, streaks of verdant thunder lanced toward Planet Eater. The Green Lantern hammer writhed across the sky, tearing space inch by inch. A spatial rift began to open. To an ordinary observer, that crack might sever someone in two, but the terrifying power did not faze Planet Eater in the least. Useless. When I break through your tricks, you'll see my true power, Planet Eater boasted. Suddenly, a turquoise lightning struck his eyes. Ah, you. The electricity jostled him, his speech fragmented. Ori, Jin. The words trembled as the thunder pierced him. His expression twisted into astonishment. A violent turbulence stirred within his core. This kid had comprehended a thunder origin power field in such a short time. Such aptitude. How terrifying. Damn it. Thunder origin power field, and not the ordinary kind. Planet Eater's face darkened. A mere mortal possessing such power? This was dangerous. If that spread through his body, he would be in real trouble. He panicked and tried to cut off his own primal power. But Shufu's attack wasn't so easy to evade. The turquoise lightning tracked its path through the sky and surged toward him. Planet Eater's massive face tightened. The vast primal power on his body tried to coalesce into a dull shield. Shufu's Gura Gura tremors slammed into that shield and began to spread through it. The primal power started to collapse, disintegrating into black particles and dissipating. Planet Eater stood dumbfounded. How could this be so effective? Even weakened and in his second form, his primal power should rival or surpass a Skyfather. How could it crumble on first contact? The turquoise lightning pierced the shield and lanced across Planet Eater's body. Pain shot through him and he roared. Damn it! If I hadn't been hungry, he spat. Crushing you would be like crushing an insect. His tone had the odd note of wounded pride. Shufu rolled his eyes. This is battle. Could you be a little more serious? You're a creator god, not a spoiled child rolling on the ground when you lose. Planet Eater, leave now. Chaisu Star is my territory. You have no right to devour it, Shufu shouted. Despite the turquoise thunder racking him, Planet Eater didn't budge. Don't even think about it. This time I'll devour your planet. Challenging me will come at a cost. My primal power is endless, but your phoenix radiance doesn't seem innate to your body, so it must have restrictions, he growled. I'll exhaust you, drain you to death. He ground his teeth. Shufu had humiliated him. He was furious. Even weakened, Planet Eater vowed not to leave empty-handed. If he couldn't kill Shufu now, he would at least make him pay, make him lose skin and dignity. Section 190, Planet Eater's mind felt faint. Shufu's methods were just too strong, too terrifying. Even Planet Eater's body, woven from primordial power, registered sharp pain. This wasn't damage ordinary energy could inflict. Could this freak actually lose? Planet Eater's voice boomed as he shouted at Shufu, but his actions betrayed him. The vast primordial power that enshrouded him strained to resist the Gura Gura no Mi energy Shufu wielded, yet he no longer took the initiative to attack. On Blue Star, the Ancient One, who had been watching Shufu and this battlefield, stared in stunned silence. She had sensed something earlier and had used the Time Stone to probe many possible futures, eventually picking up a lead on Shufu from the Guardians of the Galaxy. That was why she had focused on Chai Su Star. When she learned that one of the 5 founding gods, Planet Eater, might be fighting Shufu, she had been ready to step in at a moment's notice. And now, this? A dignified Planet Eater, one of the 5, bested so thoroughly? When had Shufu become so powerful? Even so, the Ancient One could see the truth. Although Planet Eater was no longer at his peak, he still radiated the might of a near multidimensional master. The enormous palm of primordial force he could form might easily crush Blue Star in a single squeeze. Yet Shufu had neutralized that threat with apparent ease. She could not help but sigh. Talent truly did spring from generation to generation. The young were getting stronger. She felt for a moment she was having trouble keeping up. Shufu didn't know any of that. He kept pressing Planet Eater, using the Gura Gura no Mi to exploit the god's weakness. Planet Eater was being drained. The primordial light wrapped around him was fading. Then Shufu noticed something wrong. Planet Eater wasn't merely weakening, he was drawing power into himself. You're really going to stoop to that, Planet Eater? One of the 5 founding gods, and you're siphoning my power in secret? No sense of honor? Shufu said, incredulous. The old god's move was cunning, unexpected but not beyond belief. He had been quietly devouring the Gura Gura no Mi energy Shufu poured out. Hey, you noticed, Planet Eater replied. The dim radiance along his form flared. The emerald lightning Shufu had spread collapsed, absorbed into the god. At the same time, a deeper, black primordial power welled up from within Planet Eater. Shufu realized Planet Eater wasn't transferring power to him. He was taking Shufu's energy and converting it to strengthen himself, preparing to revive. As the balance shifted, Planet Eater's power surged. Judging by the change, Shufu estimated Planet Eater had reached something like the level of a primary universe entity. Before Shufu could react further, Planet Eater spoke in a cold, confident voice. Mortal, I'll give you a choice. Become my servant, and I will spare the planet behind you and the world you were born on. He was certain the tide had turned. He felt like the boss again. To be one of the 5 founding gods' servant was an offer many would die for. He looked at Shufu with pride, assuming the human would bend. Shufu blinked at him, unimpressed. You've grown big and ugly, but not clever. It's a shame your height wasn't matched by intelligence. He flicked his fingers. 2 translucent blades of light spun into his palms. Planet Eater's expression soured. Shufu clearly wasn't buying the bargain. You'd save my planet by forcing me into servitude? Shufu said coldly. I will defend my world, but I will not be anyone's slave. If you want to devour my planet, you'll have to take it from me. The green power of the lantern blossomed in Shufu's hand. Where the 2 small light blades had been, the construct swelled, will made manifest, until it became a colossal axe the size of a celestial body, humming with concentrated emerald energy. Next to that titanic weapon, Shufu himself looked like an ant holding a human spear. Everyone watching went silent, stunned. The Ancient One's eyes dulled with disbelief. The lantern light, she knew it, was dangerous and extravagant. The Green Lantern ring relied on its wielder's imagination and will to shape and amplify an attack. Such constructs ate away at one's will. Small blades were one thing, but conjuring something on the scale of a planet-sized axe would be devastating to the user. Even so, the image in front of her was undeniable. Shufu had just taken his resolve and given it form, an axe vast enough to challenge a god. Chapter 191, Section 191. Ancient One felt certain she would be drained dry by a cost like this. Shufu had produced 2 of them. Was he even human? Disbelief washed over Ancient One's face more intensely than when she had seen the Planet Eater. Shufu's brow twitched. Without hesitation, he struck. 2 transparent light blades formed in his palms and swung out. In space, they carried no weight, but they cut like razor-sharp daggers. Shufu wielded them without apparent effort. The Planet Eater's expression shifted violently when the blades bit toward him. The power in those swords, mixed with strange forces, felt as menacing as the foul breath of annihilation. It radiated a palpable threat. The Planet Eater knew the blows wouldn't kill him outright. His body was already more like an energy construct of Source, but they would hurt. His Source essence would be eroded and shredded. It would feel like his very spirit was being sliced. He gathered his energies and raised a shield that shimmered with black light. Shufu's twin blades fell at once. A single, crisp sound rang out, like an axe cleaving dry timber, and the Planet Eater's Source shield ripped apart. "What? It can't be blocked?" The Planet Eater cried, stunned. "This is a shield forged from the source of creation. Even if night fell and silence reigned and black holes opened, this shield holds." Shufu's seemingly ordinary blades had cut right through it. How could a mortal be so powerful? There was no sign of a fundamental force field, yet the swords carried the weight to threaten a creator's shield. The Planet Eater's worldview felt upended. He had survived since the previous age of silence and had witnessed the universe's wonders, countless masters, countless creators, innumerable prodigies. He had never seen anything like this. Was this mortal secretly a fragment of some creator left on Blue Star, or had someone rewritten the universe's original fabric while he slept? The Planet Eater scoured Shufu's presence, searching for the source of such sacrilegious power. Two faint points of divine light, his eyes stared intently. The deeper he probed, the more uneasy he felt. This one was strange, anomalous. He clenched his fist and his form shrank, drawing inward as godly power swelled. Shufu felt resistance changing beneath his strikes. The Planet Eater's body became like a viscous trap. Each impact sank into a quagmire of blackness that impeded movement. After several breaths, even Shufu's extremely sharp emerald blades were halted. A flicker of astonishment crossed Shufu's face. Devourer of Stars was a true creator. He had tricks after all. This was the first time one of Shufu's blades had been stopped. Not even a planet could withstand such a barrier, yet Devourer of Stars had managed it. Shufu paused his attack. Before him, the Devourer had shrunk to roughly 1/10 his usual size, only a little more than twice the height of an ordinary Blue Star native. The black particles around him had congealed into a dense, almost solid sphere that absorbed all light. If Shufu hadn't probed with his mind, he might have had trouble locating the Devourer at all. Onlookers murmured in disbelief. Would a famed creator really condense himself into an armored shell like that? No wonder they called him one of the supreme god's rogues. Shufu tightened his grip and produced two transparent blades once more, his emerald light swords. He swung them out. They cut with space-rending force, meant to sever any material. But the black matter did not behave like ordinary substance. It was viscous, deceptive, more like living mud than stone. The emerald blades could not slice cleanly through. They bogged down. Shufu's expression hardened. Emerald lightning flickered across his palms as he shifted tactics, drawing on another ability that had always worked for him, the quake-like power he called upon like the Gura Gura no Mi. Thunderous light had ripped across starfields before, but this time it struck the black sphere and died. The sound echoed without spreading. The black shell swallowed the tremor as if it passed through iron. It was an iron eggshell. Shufu felt a sting of helplessness. If a creator chose simply to defend, who could force a breach? Some creators were like that, invulnerable if they refused to die. Even another creator, such as Annihilation, could find it impossible. Devourer of Stars was no different. If he remained wrapped in this defensive form, only someone of a higher dimensional realm could shatter it. He had already tried Nabu's power, his emerald light swords, and other spells. Every tool at his disposal. Nothing would pry the shell open. Shufu stood before the impenetrable barrier, a sliver of frustration settling over him. Devourer of Stars, it seemed, did not want to be bothered. To stoop so low for a junior like him, Shufu actually didn't mind losing face. He couldn't stay in space with him for long anyway. But at that moment, something else happened. Reddish-brown ripples of light suddenly radiated from Shufu's body. From a distance, they looked as substantial as a small mountain peak. Shufu slapped his forehead as if remembering something and said aloud, "Of course, the cosmic energy link. It's found a source of the same origin and is excited." He thought for a second and then gave a decisive order. If it's of the same origin, then draw his original power back into it. The ripples of light lunged like tentacles toward the devourer of stars. They wrapped around the black sphere the devourer had produced and pierced it. It was like a giant mosquito sucking blood. Black filaments crawled outward from the reddish-brown waves. The devourer's godly power was being drawn out. Even a tiny fraction of that unbearably pure power, once absorbed into Shufu, made him feel as if he would explode. Buoyant, replenished, all previous losses restored. He couldn't suppress his joy. The relief was intoxicating. The Ancient One on the ground stared, stunned, unable to make sense of what was unfolding. Far away in Asgard, the projection of the battle caught the attention of an old man with a white beard and bright eyes. Odin, all-father of the Nine Realms, had been watching ever since Heimdall reported that Midgard, Blue Star, harbored a freak whose power exceeded mortal bounds. Now, Shufu was fighting one of the universe's primordial beings. The fallout of the clash had already rippled through the Nine Realms, and as their lord Odin came to observe. He zoomed the projection in and saw the reddish-brown ripples, runes flashing across them. His breath hitched. This was impossible. This was original cosmic power, the very power of Galactus at his peak. Apart from Galactus himself and his heralds, how could anyone use this? Odin's eyes fixed on the scarlet light. It had to be that power, pure, complete, the kind that had broken through primary and multidimensional barriers. But how? Could Shufu be the reincarnation of that lord? No, that didn't fit. Shufu was a Blue Star native. There had been no record of him ever leaving it, yet he was wielding a power only Galactus could wield. Even a clone of Galactus would struggle to do this. How could Shufu? The realization that everything he believed might be wrong left Odin reeling. He sat back as if the world itself tilted beneath him. For a long moment, he could only consider the implications, the specter of Ragnarok, the long searches that might have been in vain, and whether Shufu was some pivot in fate. He felt both fascinated and unsettled, unable to tear his attention from the projection. Back at Chaisu Star, the battle turned. Galactus shrank, not by choice, but because his magnificent power was being siphoned away. The reddish-brown ripples that had reached him had darkened. The energy flowing along them was identical to Galactus's own original power. Realizing this, Galactus finally reacted. He felt his body being hollowed out. His mind swam as if drunk. The energies he normally commanded were pouring out like a dam breaking. Fortunately for him, his reserves were vast. Countless primal streams surged up from within and slowed the draining. Still, panic flared. He recognized the technique, the very force he had forged as a weapon in another parallel universe. Fortunately, he told himself, this child does not truly master it. With that, Galactus unleashed his might. His onslaught smashed Shufu's 10 formidable ripples in an instant. Even if I don't know why you can borrow this power, it's useless to me. You're finished. A murderous intent flared in Galactus. No matter what connection Shufu might have to that distant lord, Galactus would not leave him alive. If there was any link, he could always consume the planet afterward, and no one would be in a position to complain. The lord was capricious, prone to bestowing power without much oversight, and impartial in judgment. Thus, Galactus reasoned, killing Shufu could be justified as the target's own failing. He gathered himself and contracted his enormous form. In moments, the colossal cosmic presence condensed down until he stood as a giant roughly 8 feet tall in the universe below, a monstrous but suddenly more limited figure ready to end the fight. He looked far stronger than the average inhabitant of Chaisu Star. Still, compared to Galactus, he seemed like an ant. Shufu felt no relief. If anything, his face grew more solemn. Power was always more dangerous when it was tightly concentrated. Galactus had compressed energy that had once been planetary in scale down to this level, an indication of how unbearably dense the force in his body had become. He could be terrifyingly powerful now. Shufu did not flinch. 4 green light walls sprang up and sealed him in. It's useless, Galactus said calmly. No trace of his earlier recklessness, only deadly seriousness. You are doomed. Then, as if issuing a final order, he barked, "Devour!" Black light, threaded with countless lethal auras, surged toward Shufu. The man's expression changed. The green barrier in front of him swelled and reshaped itself into a colossal cauldron. The black light seemed to move sluggishly, but in the blink of an eye, it was upon him. Before the green light could flare, Shufu detonated. A green phoenix erupted into the void of space. It was breathtaking, an enormous, living emblem of light that expanded until it filled most of the surrounding universe. More astonishingly, the artificial black hole Galactus had produced could not swallow it. It was as if the phoenix did not belong to the physical laws of that cosmos. For a moment, Galactus was off balance. He reached out to grasp the phoenix, but his power met no effect. The phoenix alighted on Galactus's palm and then detonated. The impact set off a chain reaction, a storm of blinding radiance that overwhelmed a star the size of a small galaxy. Chu's star was bathed in daylight. The light poured across the Sagittarius arm, and the blast was powerful enough to fracture asteroids and send them exploding. The bombardment raged for nearly half an hour before the high air dimmed and the starry sky fell silent again. When the light faded, Shufu shimmered back into view, completely unharmed. Galactus, by contrast, looked far worse. His armor was blackened and blistered like the bottom of a burnt pot. The material held, but it was singed and tattered. His hair was scorched, as though he had crawled out of a furnace. He stared at Shufu, eyes wide with a mixture of shock and disbelief. How could this child keep throwing up new horrors? It was beyond imagining. Regret and confusion washed over him. He had come after the Silver Surfer and had stumbled into this nightmare instead. As one of the universe's creator gods, he had never felt such helplessness. To be bested so completely on a remote little planet like Chaisu's star, he found it humiliating, almost obscene. Why would someone so powerful be hiding here instead of roaming the multiverse? The thought filled him with a strange, inexplicable fear. Galactus clenched his fists. "Damn it," he muttered. "I must defend my dignity." The words felt hollow. He knew he was weakened, that in his current half-broken state any recklessness would only get him worse abused. Still, the pain throbbed through him and pride flared. "No," he decided. "Even if I must burn my source energy, I'll fight this kid. Otherwise, where's my creator's aura?" Desperation bred a more calculating idea. Shufu was no ordinary mortal. He might be carrying some secret, some kernel of power or knowledge that could pull Galactus out of his ruined condition. For countless years, the devastation of a shattered universe had left him ravenous and diminished. He had become a beast who only knew how to feed. The thought of remaining like that gnawed at him. If Shufu possessed some extraordinary secret, after all, he had just manipulated a universe-level phoenix, then perhaps that secret could cure him. Galactus's eyes glittered with anticipation. He did not want to remain what he had become. This ruin had come to him through catastrophe and mischance. If there was a way to reclaim his former stature, he would seize it. He fixed Shufu with a long, intense stare, torn between the pride he wished to salvage and the consuming hunger for restoration. Chapter 194, Section 194. Let him be what he is now. The hunger gnawing at Galactus had grown unbearable. Over time, it had only intensified. Before, devouring countless lifeless planets had been enough. Now he needed living worlds to stave it off. If the secrets tied to Shufu could solve that hunger, he would have to take whatever power that was. With that thought, Galactus began to stir the terrible prime power inside him. He held the ravenous silence at bay just long enough to unseal another fraction of that dread force. Death! He pointed a finger at Shufu and sent a streak of deathlight hurtling toward him. It didn't strike like an overwhelming blow, but Shufu felt it like a heat-seeking tracer, relentless, incapable of being shaken off. Then a thought flashed through Shufu's mind. There was a copying clone spell in the Darkhold that could duplicate someone, though it cost enormous energy, enough to kill an ordinary magician by exhaustion. He had just siphoned a great deal of residual shell energy from that giant head. Maybe that would be enough to try the spell. He spread his arms, as if preparing to paste himself. Shufu's figure began to stretch out. Then in an instant, tens of thousands of Shufus erupted from him, filling half the night sky. Galactus went momentarily slack-jawed. His attack faltered. The phantoms created by Shufu's illusion were not hollow images. They were genuine clones. Even their soul signatures were perfectly steady. Galactus's death ray, which keyed on soul cores to find its victim, suddenly behaved like a lost child among thousands of identical faces. The rays fluttered aimlessly between the copies, unable to find the real Shufu. Frustrated, the little shaft of death finally lashed out at a random Shufu. The chosen clone exploded and dissipated as it tumbled toward Chai Su Star. Still, more than 9,000 clones remained. At once, those 9,000 plus Shufus raised their left palms in unison. In the next heartbeat, the same number of condensed green swords appeared in their hands. Galactus stared at the sea of Shufu surrounding him and roared inwardly. What on earth was this? He felt exposed and weak. He'd only just awakened and was starving. He had no margin to fight. So many opponents. Was he supposed to be torn apart alive? A freak like this on Blue Star. This utterly unbalanced the planet's scales. Even he, Galactus, could not instantly cut down so many incarnations, and these were not mere projections. Each had real power. Even a projection of godly might wouldn't match this scale. He couldn't comprehend it. If these truly attacked, he would be finished. Cowardice won out. He abandoned his human guise and expanded frantically, returning to his planet-like form. Without hesitation, he turned and fled. "I'll be back for you, human," he spat, then shot out of the centaur arm spiral and was gone in an instant. Sufu gaped as Galactus vanished, faster than opening a portal. He was startled, then amused. Galactus was leaving? The great devourer? Running away? Ridiculous. Shufu dismissed the retreating god as a coward. With a wave of his hand, his countless clones dissolved into clouds of smoke. Shaking his head, Sufu then slipped away into the depths of space. In the Asgardian divine realm, Odin had watched the whole scene and was stunned. Such an all-powerful god had been driven off, not defeated, but frightened away. What could be more astonishing than that? This was the supreme being who could devour a universe, and he had not dared to resist. However, this guy was actually scared off by Shufu in one sweep. Odin was stunned. He had never realized Shufu was such a force. What kind of virtues and powers did Blue Star have to draw a figure like that out of hiding? Far out in the depths of the universe, on a magnificent planet that at first glance looked no different from many others, the extraordinary was commonplace. Races countless and varied lived there together. Many species that were enemies elsewhere coexisted peacefully on this world. To a visitor, it would seem impossible. Creatures thought only to exist in legend could be seen wandering the streets. At the heart of the planet stood a towering metropolis, a pinnacle of civilization with ironclad structures and a sky filled with flying vehicles. Dominating the city was an even grander citadel, brilliant and radiant, its splendor outshining even the legendary Asgard of the Nine Realms. Inside that citadel, the halls were empty, except for two golden sarcophagi-like devices. Through their transparent casings, two gilded figures could be seen, their skin like burnished metal. If Star-Lord had been there, he would have recognized them at a glance as Xandarians, the race with whom he was particularly close. But these two looked more statuesque and inhuman than any Xandarians he had ever seen. A surge of splendid power began to stir inside one of the sarcophagi. The burly Xandarian within snapped his eyes open, and with a wave of his hand, the golden casing burst apart. He sat up, breathless. 100 million years, he murmured. So much time has passed. I, Sengulari, have returned. This time I will rule the whole universe. He lifted his hand, and a blue cube hovered above him, the universe heart, a divine artifact that breaks through mortal limits. For the sake of this treasure, he and his mate had lain in deep slumber for 100 million years. Now, understanding at last its purpose, he knew what it could do. With the universe heart, the Xandarians would not only be able to copy forms, they could also transcend and replicate powers. Even the most ordinary Xandarian could mimic the abilities of the gifted. They would become the dominant race. Tiana Sarnama, my love, awaken. The time has come for us to rule the cosmos. Sengulari sent a beam of blue light from the cube across the chamber. The female Xandarian lying nearby stirred and opened her eyes. At the sight of his awakening, Sengulari smiled and gestured. In a few breaths, a procession of finely dressed figures entered the hall. "Sublime God, your loyal followers have come to pay their respects," they intoned, falling to their knees as one. A halo of energy swept over them, and their appearances shifted. At once, they were Xandarians, kneeling with eager faces. "Excellent. My followers, recall our kin, muster our forces." Sengulari rose, and his power overflowed. The assembled Xandarians bowed even lower, prostrate before him. "Sublime God, After you fell into sleep, an internal rebellion broke out, reported a leading Xandarian. A faction refused to follow your teachings and defected. Traitors, Sengulari hissed. Where are they? They've been pursued by the Hala and are scattered across the stars, the leader answered. They brought this on themselves. We need not trouble ourselves with them, another voiced calmly. Call our clans, raise our fleets. Sengulari settled into a cold smile. Where shall we make our rise? We go to Blue Star, the leader declared. That will be our place of ascension. Sengulari's eyes gleamed. Blue Star was no ordinary planet. 1 trillion years ago, it had been a proving nursery for gods. It had nurtured powerful inhumans. According to the Universe Heart's records, nothing in the cosmos was more suitable for their breakthrough than Blue Star. With that world as their foothold, the Xandarians would ascend beyond measure. May the gods bless our return, the leader intoned, kneeling reverently. The Xandarians were a singular people. Not only could they copy appearances, they could recreate an image and pattern so perfectly that their technology across the cosmos was unrivaled. At the Citadel's command, vast numbers of Xandarians rallied from every corner of the universe. Their forms were strange and varied, composed of countless races, and few were weak. Fleets and legions converged, and civilizations awoke bewildered. Entire family armadas and the forces of prominent figures had fled or been recalled. The ripple effects were immediate. The Xandarians' mobilization sent shockwaves through the universe. Turmoil erupted, conflicts flared, and old orders shook. Powers such as the Hala, the Observers, and even portions of the Divine Realm were affected. Many withdrew, and countless territories were left vacant. The scale of the upheaval outstripped many future calamities. Chapter 120. New Fishing Pond. Eagle Country, Mist City. After Shufu had driven Galactus away, the fishing pond coordinates had indeed refreshed. He took Monday and returned to Blue Star from Chai Su Star. This time, the fishing pond was located near Mist City. Chapter 196, Section 196. He didn't expect to run into Thor here, Thor with his hammer, nor did he expect to see Jane Foster, Thor's current girlfriend and soon-to-be ex. Jane had been working on a research project in this region. After the Chitauri invasion, many people had been drawn to this area. The Mediterranean countries felt quieter than other places. Fewer battles and disasters happened here. Compared with the United States, which attracts many villains, or places like the White Scarf Alliance, where wars never seem to end, Mist City was peaceful. It was also a convenient place for business trips, so Thor often visited Jane. Because of Shufu's involvement, the Bifrost had not been destroyed, and Thor had no reason to fight in the other realms. His father Odin never openly approved of Thor's affection for Jane. Asgardians live for centuries, while humans on Blue Star live barely 100 years. Odin thought Thor would be better matched with Sif, the Asgardian warrior. But love is a strange thing. Thor considered Sif an acquaintance. His heart belonged to Jane. That upset Odin, but Thor was not someone Odin could control, so he had stopped arguing. In Asgard, many had read the secret reports about the 9 realms converging. In a very short time, the realms would be linked into one, a phenomenon that had occurred once before on Blue Star. Jane, an astrophysicist fascinated by God physics, was especially intrigued. Darcy Lewis, what did you say was strange about this place? Jane asked. It'll be obvious soon, Darcy said. The fabric of space here, it's different. Different how? Jane pressed. You'll see when you get there, Darcy replied, grinning as only she could. They had gone to an abandoned factory. Jane held a device that spun constantly, showing there was something unusual about the area. Inside the building, a few teenagers showed them even stranger things. A large truck floated as if a child had flicked it. No weight, no gravity. Objects and people behaved as though the rules of space were warped. From the roof, they tossed a bottle into what appeared to be empty air. The bottle vanished into some other space and reappeared in the sky, sometimes landing in unpredictable places. This is unbelievable, Jane murmured. The whole thing overturned her notion of how space should behave. She had expected something like 2 caves looping into each other. Instead, the factory seemed to be a patchwork of pocket spaces. Let me see how special it is, Jane said, and began probing with her instrument. Darcy and the others kept pace at first, then separated. At a certain spot on the floor, a force suddenly pulled Jane into a strange void. She vanished. The space felt dim and oddly silent. Jane looked around, struck by the surreal stillness. She moved toward a stone pillar and felt a strange pull from the opposite side. Inside the pillar, a dark red, viscous substance flowed endlessly. "What is that?" she whispered. Her hand reached out as if to touch it. She did not realize she was reaching for the ether, the reality stone. The ether, a form of the infinity stones, could make wishes manifest, even if they violated the laws of reality. Long ago, the Dark Elves had sought to use the ether to plunge the universe into eternal night. 820 years ago, the king of Asgard at the time, Odin, had seized the ether and sealed it deep within a hidden pocket of space. Because infinity stones could not be destroyed, containment had been the only option. Now, as the 9 realms began to converge, that sealed space was opening again, and Jane had stumbled into it. The ether surged into Jane like a tadpole finding its mother. Energy flooded her body. Overwhelmed, she fainted. Back in the Great Hall of Asgard, Thor stood before Heimdall. "Heimdall, I need your sight again." Heimdall smiled softly. "Thor, are you going to see Miss Jane Foster again?" "Yes," Thor said. "Jane's team is?" Heimdall's expression shifted. "Miss Jane Foster is doing excellent work on Blue Star. She's been running experiments related to the convergence," but his voice cut off, strained. "What is it?" Thor demanded. "Miss Jane Foster has disappeared," Heimdall said, voice tightened. "I can no longer find her." "Send me there," Thor snapped. "Now." Far away, in a vast, ruined expanse of space, dotted with fractured starstones and devoid of visible life, a magnificent ship hovered. No one knew how long it had been there, or who had brought it. Inside that ship, a device slowly opened, revealing the figure within. He looked strange, sharp, angular features, a unibrow and an odd, flat brow that gave him a cold, severe expression. Any ruler of Asgard would have recognized him, Matgigith, commander of the Dark Elves. After his defeat thousands of years ago, he had led the remnants of his people out of their realm to hide in the depths of space. He had been waiting for the ether particle to appear. Only that particle could grant them what they wanted. He did not pin all his hopes on a direct assault to destroy Asgard. If all of space fell into eternal night, Asgard would fall with it. The ether particle has appeared. His eyes flashed with cold light. It's time for the Dark Elves to come out, for the future. Across the vast ship, Dark Elves who had been in deep sleep slowly came to themselves. They had one chance now. This time they had to succeed. "Where is this?" Jenny Foster blinked awake and took in her surroundings. She was still in the old factory. "Where's Darcy Lewis?" She rose and walked downstairs. At the door she found police cars lined up, and of course, Darcy. "Darcy Lewis," she called. "Jenny, you're finally back," Darcy cried. "What happened?" Jenny asked. "You were missing. I called the police," Darcy said. "You called the police?" Jenny stared. "Darcy, you can't do that. We used to do whatever experiments we wanted here." "You were missing for hours," Darcy said. "Hours?" Jenny froze. It had felt like only a moment to her. She thought of the dark red liquid she had seen. Could that be why? A steady rain began to fall outside. Strange, though, it didn't seem to touch the ground around Jenny. Darcy looked up, eyes narrowing. "Thor," she murmured. Jenny turned and Thor, hammer in hand, standing at the edge of the rain. She ran and threw herself into his arms. "Jenny," he said, holding her tightly. "Thor, how did you get here?" she asked. "I was in Asgard," he answered gravely. "I asked Heimdall to look for you, but he couldn't find you on the Blue Star at all. If Heimdall can't see a mortal, something's happened to you. I had to come see for myself." Jenny shook her head. "I don't know. I think I was pulled into a strange space, and something went into my body." "Something went into you?" Thor asked. "I don't know what," she said. A police officer stepped forward. "You're Jenny Foster, who was reported missing?" he asked. "Yes," she said, stepping out from behind Thor. "All right, you'll need to come with me to give a statement." "I can't go with you right now," Jenny said. "Miss, it's not your choice," the officer insisted. "It's police procedure. This is a strange scene." He grabbed her shoulder. Power burst out from Jenny. Raw, uncontrolled energy that slammed the officer back and sent other police cars rattling. The officers drew their weapons, watching warily. Jenny herself staggered under the force of it and fell back. Thor caught her. "Sir, Please let go of the lady, another officer called to Thor. And if I don't, Thor's voice was cold. The threat in it made the officer's blood run cold. The young man before them looked like a volcano ready to erupt. Thor paid them no more mind. A shaft of red light flashed, the Bifrost, and in an instant, Thor and Jenny were gone. They had been gone so suddenly, Darcy stood rooted for a moment. Then she let out a shaky laugh. Well, that's Thor, she muttered. It was hard to worry when your friend was with the god of thunder. Asgard had already been rocked by a major incident. The Dark Elves had launched an attack to seize the ether particle. They had ultimately failed to carry it off, but not without loss. Frigga, Odin's wife and Thor's mother, had been killed. The object that had entered Jenny's body earlier was the ether, the relic the Dark Elves had hoped to use to plunge space into eternal night. Frigga's death left Odin grief-stricken and enraged. He waited in Asgard, convinced the Dark Elves would return if the ether remained anywhere near the Nine Realms. Thor would not let that happen. Too many lives would be lost if Asgard prepared only to be besieged. He had a plan. Find the Dark Elves, let them try to take the ether, shatter it, and then destroy the Dark Elves. But the Nine Realms portals are sealed now. What can we do? A young swordsman asked. We'll need one other person, Thor said. No way. Are you talking about that bastard? Someone nearby spat. The name on everyone's lips was Loki. Loki can't be trusted, a young warrior in armor said. I know, Thor admitted. But for Mother's sake, I believe Loki will help, and Father wouldn't suspect it either. Chapter 198, Section 198. The dungeons of Asgard were cold and damp. Thor stood over Loki, who sat in the corner with his teeth bared and his hands clenching as if he still wore claws. Loki, Thor said quietly, dropped the illusion. The phantom shimmer dissolved. Loki's face fell into a sullen mask. The table and floor around him were scattered with debris. Thor, brother, Loki said without ceremony, have you come to see me make a fool of myself? No, Thor replied. I've come to ask for your help, for our mother. Loki's eyes narrowed. Revenge? Yes. Loki gave a short, humorless laugh. Of course. They were beyond Asgard now, in Waller-Alheim, the place Malekith had attacked before. Thor had smuggled Loki and Jennifer Schrader out on an Asgardian warship. It was treason by any definition, and Thor understood the cost. Even if he beat Malekith, Asgard would punish him for abandoning his post. Still, for Asgard and for the woman he loved, he had no other choice. When will you unlock my chains? Loki asked. He spoke like a man who expected the worst. Malekith could arrive at any moment, and a bound Loki would be useless. Thor looked at him and released the shackles. No one could predict what would happen next, and they had to be ready for anything. I always thought coming here with you this time would be just to die, Loki said. As long as we're prepared, we can win. Thor answered. Loki spread his hands. They plunged the warship down and crashed it into the ground. They climbed out and waited for Malekith. For Loki more than anyone, Malekith had become the focus of hatred. Bonds with Odin and the other gods had frayed. His love and devotion belonged to Frigga. The darkening of his heart came from one thing, Frigga's death at Malekith's hands. Loki wanted the elf dead above all else. Malekith's plan was simple and ruthless, destroy Asgard as part of his campaign to unmake the Nine Realms. Thor and the others had a risky plan to stop him. Loki would pretend to duel Thor, while Malekith tried to extract the ether particle. In the confusion, they would destroy the ether and, with it, Malekith's power. It was a gamble, and it failed. The ether was more than they understood. As one of the infinity artifacts, it could not be easily killed. Malekith succeeded in harnessing it, growing immeasurably stronger. Using the ether's power as the Nine Realms converged, he plunged the realms into shadow and unrelenting darkness. In the end, Loki fell at Malekith's hands. For Thor, it was devastation. He had not only failed to stop Malekith, he had lost his brother. Thor and Jennifer were left stranded in Waller-Alheim, their plans in shreds. There has to be a way, Jennifer said, watching Thor. The strain of everything they'd been through showed on him. The past days had been relentless, and Thor had held himself steady with the kind of stubborn resolve few could match. Jenny, he said, giving a small, reluctant smile, thank you for being here. A moment later, Jennifer's phone began to ring. Phone, she said. The caller ID showed a familiar number. It made no sense. Where they were should be far beyond any signal's reach. Yet the call came through. Jennifer had an idea. "Thor, come with me." She pulled him toward a place the signal should be stronger. The cave passages around them shivered. The 9 realms were converging, and the boundaries between spaces thinned. In the deep place the caverns linked, Jennifer led him through one of those overlaps. The air shimmered, and the two disappeared. They reappeared on Blue Star, at the lab where Jennifer had once worked, where they had first met. Thor stood for a second, stunned. "We made it out," Thor said. "Yes," Jennifer answered, face set. "Now we have to find my partner and stop Malekith." Thor took a breath. "Jenny, lend me your phone for a moment." She handed it over. "What are you going to do?" "Blue Star may fall," he said. "We need someone who can turn the tide." Jennifer went quiet. A name occurred to her. "You mean Brother Sue?" "Yes, Brother Shu." She frowned. She didn't know much about this Shu Fu, this fishing boss Thor wanted. Thor shook his head. "You don't know enough about him. Don't tell anyone what I say next." "Okay," Jennifer agreed, curious. "Mist City, along the Thames." The phone on the table buzzed. Die! "Master, the call is from Mist City. The caller ID says Jenny Foster, Thor's girlfriend," Monday reported after a quick check. "Connect it," Shufu said with a smile. He picked up the line, and a familiar voice crackled through. "Brother Shu," Thor's voice said. "Thor, what's the matter? Still being lovey-dovey with your girlfriend?" Shufu teased. "No," Thor replied. "I'm near Mist City, with Jenny." There was a beat of silence. "You're with your woman. Why are you calling me?" Shufu asked, baffled but intrigued. Chapter 199, Section 199. Shufu ate the barbecue skewers Monday had brought over and lounged comfortably. "A lot has happened in the last 2 days," Thor said, sounding helpless. He then recounted the ether particle accident, the events in Asgard, Loki's death, Malekith's invasion, and the impending convergence of the 9 realms. Thor had called to beg Shufu for help. He couldn't risk fighting Malekith alone. This was about the 9 realms, and he needed allies. "So that's why you called," Shufu began. "Brother Shu, I'm asking you to help us fight Malekith," Thor said earnestly. "No problem, Thor. It's only the ether particle," Shufu replied with a smile. He wanted the ether particle, the reality stone, for himself. Although he had been leisurely fishing lately, given his current power level, Shufu could sense the 9 realms drawing together. Thor's call made the timing convenient. "Good, we should be able to pinpoint the convergence soon. I'll send you the location when we do," Thor said. "All right, let's do that," Shufu said, and hung up. He already had plans regarding the ether particle and Malekith. Malekith was strong, but the Dark Elves could not fully wield the ether particle's true power. If Shufu could determine the exact coordinates of the convergence, he could get to the target quickly. He now controlled a galaxy-level portal. Teleporting across half a galaxy, as he had before on Chaisu Star, was effortless. On Blue Star, he could reach any corner almost instantly. From this alone, the scope of Shufu's power was clear. He went to the window and looked at the distant dark clouds, feeling unusually pleased. 3 days later, the tension grew. The fish pond hadn't been productive lately. After a few days of fishing, he hadn't caught anything worthwhile, and his attention turned to the imminent 9 realms convergence. He sensed a growing disturbance in the world, a chaotic vibration that made Blue Star's normal energy readings look strange. Government's energy monitors around the globe were issuing alarms. The 9 realms of Asgard were about to begin converging. This phenomenon had happened several times on Blue Star before, and this time the convergence would occur in the international metropolis of Greenwich in Mist City, Eagle Country. Thor had sent Shufu that information as soon as he could, so Shufu was already aware. Usually such a convergence lasted only a few minutes and produced little lasting effect on Blue Star. With alien attacks and other upheavals, people here already knew the universe contained many kinds of life. For humans on Blue Star, this was another eye-opening event. Malekith's plan was to use the ether particle to bombard the 9 realms and plunge them into eternal night, his ultimate goal and the ambition of the Dark Elves. He had already acquired the ether particle from Jennifer Schrader. With it, he could devastate the realms. That was why Thor had reached out for help. Even if Thor hadn't asked, Shufu would have come. The ether particle was something he absolutely wanted. Now that Shufu had advanced to Silver Superman, he could begin cultivating with the Infinity Stones' help, drawing on their immense energies. Legends said the Infinity Stones were manifestations of the universe's primordial forces on a level comparable to the Phoenix Force or cosmic energy. Whether that was literally true or not, Shufu knew the stones would accelerate his power growth. All right, let's go to Mist City in Eagle Country and see what's happening, he decided. He set down his fishing rod and disappeared. He didn't want to miss the events in Mist City, and he definitely didn't want his carefully maintained fish pond on Blue Star to be destroyed. Blue Star was one of the 9 realms. If the convergence endangered it, he might have to take his fishing rod and leave, and he wasn't willing to let that happen. Time in the Hell Dimension seemed to flow differently, too. If he'd delayed, he might have missed the convergence entirely. Mist City, Eagle Country, Greenwich. In the Grand Eagle Country Library, Thor stood among a team preparing gear. Jennifer Schrader had brought Darcy Lewis and others to deploy equipment, enhanced versions of instruments developed by Dr. Savage. That same Dr. Savage had once been manipulated by Loki to create a space wormhole using the Space Stone. He had also tracked the universe's convergence early on. "Thor, has Brother Sue arrived yet?" Jennifer asked. "Not yet," Thor replied. "What happened? What if he forgot?" Jennifer fretted. If Shufu didn't show up, Thor would have to face Malekith's forces alone, and the consequences could be catastrophic. "That's impossible," Thor said. "He agreed to help. He'll come." "Maybe his plane was delayed," Jennifer said, trying to reason it away. She dared not think the worst. She had seen Shufu's terrifying power firsthand and had heard Thor's accounts. The one who had routed the Sentinel Corps, the one who had crushed Ultron in the Sokovia War. That Strange was Brother Shufu. Remembering those feats made her uneasy, but also confident that Shufu wouldn't be intimidated by Malekith. In fact, Shufu was occupied. He was still sorting out his recent catches at the fish pond. He had asked Monday to block all incoming signals so he wouldn't be interrupted, which was why he hadn't answered calls. "Don't worry, Jennifer. If Shufu doesn't arrive, I'll handle things here," Thor said, raising Mjolnir. "Here it comes." Thor suddenly shouted and stared ahead. At the nearby riverbank, the surface of the lake split as something unknown approached. Slowly, a pancake-shaped spacecraft skimming the water shot forward, coming closer and closer. The passers-by screamed and fled in every direction. The sight of the gigantic starship brought back memories of the attack on New City. Even though that battle had happened a long time ago, its shockwaves still echoed across Blue Star. Everyone here knew aliens existed now. This vessel could not possibly belong to Blue Star. Its design was alien, and its size comparable to a cluster of skyscrapers. Mist City's residents and tourists panicked, clutching their heads as the ship advanced without hesitation. Marble tiles shattered beneath its approach as it charged straight toward Thor. Thor felt the purpose behind the invasion. Malekith had come for revenge. "Jenny, you should get out of here," he said repeatedly, his voice steady but urgent. It was too dangerous for Jenny Fissler to stand by his side. When the time came, Thor would have to give everything he had. He could not also be responsible for her safety. Protecting Jenny was his first priority. Then came the fate of Blue Star and the unity of the 9 great kingdoms. He could never admit the order of those priorities aloud, but his words and actions made them clear. Jenny nodded. "Be careful, Thor. I've already set up a lot of equipment to support you when it happens." "All right," Thor said, and watched until Jenny slipped away to finish the final adjustments. She had installed devices built from Dr. Savage's research, machines capable of shielding a specific coordinate in space, isolating the point where the 9 great kingdoms converged. If the field held, Malekith couldn't locate the ether particle. With Jenny gone, Thor focused entirely on the ship. The vessel stopped a short distance away. An elevator-like structure descended from its fore, and a hatch opened in the hull. Malekith, Mat Jigith, stepped out, followed by armed dark elf soldiers. He surveyed Thor with cold displeasure. "As Guardian," Malekith said slowly, "you were lucky to survive last time. I didn't expect you to be so foolish." "Malekith," Thor replied, resolute and gripping Mjolnir. "I've been waiting for you." "This isn't your decision to make," Malekith sneered. "Since you're here, you'll die with it." He thrust his hands forward, and a scarlet surge erupted. an assault infused with the power of the ether particle. Thor staggered back as the impact struck him. Stones exploded underfoot, and the marble plaza cracked in every direction. Thor steadied himself and stared at Malekith. "Do you think you can beat me with tricks like that?" he demanded. Malekith's face hardened. "Do you think you can withstand the full power of the ether particle? How would I know if I didn't try?" Thor charged, Mjolnir swinging. Before Malekith could react, the hammer slammed into him and sent him reeling. Thor seized the opening and advanced as Mjolnir returned to his hand. Being struck by Mjolnir humiliated Malekith. He hissed, then unleashed another wave of the ether particle. "Destruction!" he cried, and the energy slammed into Thor, knocking him to the ground. They traded blows then, Mjolnir against the ether particle, in a collision that tore the plaza apart. Buildings trembled, windows blew out, rubble rained down. The power each of them wielded was catastrophic. Wherever their energies met, stones split and the earth buckled. Meanwhile, Malekith's soldiers flooded from the ship, weapons raised, descending on the terrified citizens. Chaos reigned. People were trapped between armored dark elves and the battle's shockwaves. Jenny's work, however, began to make a difference. Her instruments opened overlapping spatial channels, miniature warp fields resembling the effects of the Space Stone, built from Dr. Savage's designs. As the Dark Elves advanced, many stepped into pockets of warped space and vanished, carried to random coordinates across the converging kingdoms. Some of those transported might end up far away. Others could be dropped into hostile territories where local masters would swiftly deal with them. The device could not control where they landed, only that they disappeared from Mist City. Time was against the defenders. The convergence of the 9 great kingdoms would last only minutes, and few realms could mobilize quickly enough. Maybe the Eagle Country could respond fastest, but even their troops would struggle to arrive in time. As Dark Elf raiders massacred wherever they could, civilians wailed and fled. On the battlefield, the endless exchange between Mjolnir and the ether particle continued to pulverize the surroundings. Whole houses were sheared into rubble under the explosive energy. The air filled with dust and the cries of the wounded, the city fracturing under the two powers locked in furious combat.